Aboriginal people, sea country is women's country. The old people, they lived here for thousands of generations and they cared for this environment. Aboriginal people, we talk about being custodians of land, of sea, of country. We don't see ourselves as being owners of it. We view ourselves more deeply as being part of it.
When I watch the ocean, it's like, I feel like that's the old people, you know, bobbing and swimming. And I get this real sense of home and like, oh, I feel earthed. Here you get beautiful, beautiful wash-ups at the right times, depending on what the weather's been doing. And I just think it's one of the most magical spots. Yeah, I sort of have this affinity with it. So yeah, this is part of our country and we go right round this coastline. I think for me, you know, it's really important to use the kelp to talk about the fragility of country. And like, people don't realise that forest in the ocean is the same as our land forest and the importance that plays in our environment. I have that message very strongly about how endangered things are becoming and how scary is that, you know, that these forests could be wiped out in my lifetime. Whereas, you know, my ancestors have used that material for thousands and thousands of years. And so I want to, you know, inform people about the fragility of country, also that we're still here. When I'm making, like, people will often think that what I've made is from leather and they get quite blown away when they realise it's kelp. It's quite a sensual looking material, but yeah, I want to sort of seduce people, but then also they get hit with the message in the statement about what is really happening. So it's about drawing people in, but also giving them, like, this is really scary stuff happening to our environment. Although it's really important to make water carriers and to understand that technique, I like to actually make really contemporary objects and things and actually be in those things sometimes to actually talk about how we're not a static culture. We're actually, like all cultures, we've evolved and adapt, and how that can actually engage with people today to bring them along on the journey and to actually think about how they can use different mediums to tell different stories.
If we went back 300 years ago and I was living traditionally, I think this would be my spot. I'm pretty certain I could live quite comfortably here. There's a background noise. It is the most amazing sound to listen to when the wave rolls in and then rolls back and you hear the tumbling of the rock. And I'm just watching the water doing what it's doing now, crashing up against the sea, watching the seaweed float in and out. I'll charge myself up. That's my connection to country. I believe as we are custodians and stewards of a living country. It is a living being, therefore means that we are, by the law, we are its guardians. I'm a custodian and steward of country. That's what I am. And that is then broken up into your different titles of artwork, science, sociology, psychology, philosophy. Creating ephemeral artwork is an amazing and immersive experience. Why? Because I take my time. Sometimes I just sit here and reconnect. Because you need the connection to start with, and then the artwork itself will come from, sometimes I'm just addressing something that's caught me up. Might have learned something new from recorded research, which has probably disturbed my thought processes, and I want to come down. I might aggressively do it. I might make something that's leaning on something else, that's leaning on something else, and I know the weight of it's going to crush it down. Or I might make something gentle that will live and sway in the breeze. And it's the three countries talking together. It's sea, land and sky, all talking together in one artwork at a time. It's very important that the artwork and the history, because we have some of the oldest artwork in the world. I mean, I know of people who have been through all these things fighting to be recognised as people. My father was a cray fisherman, and my grandmother, who only just recently passed away, was one of the original shell necklace makers. Our folk had to sort of knuckle down and just sort of slow things down for a while and put a pause on culture. If culture fades, all these core drivers of them themselves as a Tasmanian Aboriginal person, as an Indigenous person, will die along with it.
In the lead up to diving day, I always feel anxious. And even the day before, like yesterday, I started feeling anxious when I was packing up to drive down. I don't know how to explain that anxiousness. I think it's, part of, thinking that it's sea country, it's women's country, and me going in there. There's the fear of the unknown. And I'm anxious all the way through until I get in the water. And then start going down. And that's when everything stops and I begin to enjoy it. Underwater, the scene is just spectacular in terms of, there's canyons, there's big boulders, there's all these different types of weeds in there. On the smaller side, the sea tulip, and then there's just the marine life, the different types of fish that are swimming around. When we left the surface and went down, straight onto a big rock, and there's a nice big abalone with some others sitting around there. They're here today practising a cultural tradition, a cultural tradition that's been around for thousands of generations, going out into sea country and get a feed. When I go into sea country, I'm always careful and mindful and respectful that it's not my environment. But I go in there sort of with the knowledge that they've cared for thousands of generations. I'd like to think that they were happy and proud of what I'm doing. Maddie and I, sort of got into it and sort of got moved around a bit. The strength and the power of that water, and how insignificant you were in the scheme of it, that, you know, there's nothing you could do. You know, that's the old people up there saying, no, you're not going any further, and to back out. And we did. You know, it's not worth it.
For me, coming down here and doing things like going diving, getting abalone and crayfish and stuff, it kind of takes me back home to like where my ancestors were. And so being on sea country, I feel like it's a place where I belong.
What more can a father ask for to see his daughter growing up and having a passion to be involved in the sea country? She's does a good job and is very thoughtful under the water, and she holds her own. At the end of the day, sitting back, cooking up the feed on the beach, eating it, it's just, you know, the icing on the cake. You know, it's just made it whole and complete.
I think it's very important for me to continue these practices. In the future, if I have kids, I want them to be able to like know where their history is, know about their ancestors, and I feel like a way for me to do that is for me also to know and then continue doing these cultural days. Climate change, I feel like it's impacting everyone, but then more importantly, it's particularly impacting marine life.
The reef area that we went to, I'm pretty fearful for it. We're getting species here that have never been here before. One of them that's particularly nasty in terms of our rocky reefs are the long-spined sea urchin. And where we were today, but I'm fearful that they're going to get into there and then they'll go through and wreck that whole habitat. The resource needs to be looked at more closely and needs to have good management around it. There should be a lot more Aboriginal voices in the management of fisheries. That's fundamental. We've never ceded our rights to sea country and to the resources, and we should be having a say as to how they're being managed.
If we lose all our forests, what a horrible legacy we've left to our ongoing generations. It's like, oh my goodness, there's so much like cultural loss. Yeah, and just that connection to cultural resources and cultural practice.
Tasmanian Aboriginal culture is one of the oldest, most resilient and ever-growing cultures in the world. It's important that the kids, the grandkids, the great-grandkids learn all these things, and I can't wait to see the next generation of people coming through.
In the future, I really want to go and study marine, particularly marine biology and how organisms interact with one another. I want to continue teaching cultural practices to people that want to learn, and I just want to share the knowledge that I'm still learning today, but I want to share it.